The council chamber was loud with alien voices. 12 different species sat around the great circular table, each one speaking over the others. They argued about borders. They argued about trade routes. They argued about who owned what and who owed whom. In the corner seat, almost forgotten, sat a human woman named Claire Novak. She was small compared to most of the aliens in the room. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple style. Her clothes were plain. She carried no weapons and wore no fancy jewelry. When she spoke, which was rare, her voice was soft and calm. The Volanti delegates found her amusing. High Commander Zorvax was the leader of the Volanti Dominion. His species looked like tall lizards covered in shimmering scales that changed color with their moods. When he was angry, they turned red. When he was pleased, they went bright blue. Right now, they shifted between green and yellow, the colors of amusement and contempt. "The human wishes to speak," Zorvax announced to the chamber, his voice dripping with mockery. "Let us all be silent and hear what wisdom she brings." The other Volanti delegates clicked their teeth together in laughter. Claire stood slowly, her face showing nothing. "Earth respectfully requests that the Volanti fleet movements near our colonial borders be explained," she said. "Our sensors have detected 37 warships in the Kepler sector over the past month." Zorvax waved one clawed hand dismissively. "Training exercises. Nothing more. Does the mighty Earth fear a few ships passing through open space?" More laughter from the Volanti. "We do not fear," Claire said quietly. "We simply wish to understand." "Understanding is for the weak," Zorvax replied. "The strong do not need to understand. They simply act." Claire nodded once and sat back down. She made a small note on her datapad. To anyone watching, it looked like she was recording the minutes of the meeting. In truth, she was sending an encrypted message to Earth. 30-7 ships confirmed. Kepler sector. Fleet composition matches assault formation. 12,000 light-years away. Admiral Nathan Cole received the message in his office at Earth Command. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his mind was still sharp. He had been watching the Volanti for 20 years. He knew what they were planning. "They are going to attack," he said to Commander Lisa Garrett, his most trusted officer. Lisa looked at the message on the screen. She was younger than Nathan, with dark skin and a serious face. She had risen through the ranks quickly because she was smart and brave. "Should we send more ships to the border?" "No." Nathan leaned back in his chair. "That would show them we know. Let them think we are blind. And if they attack before we are ready?" Nathan smiled, but there was no joy in it. "We have been ready for a long time, Lisa. The Volanti just do not know it yet." Back on the council station, Claire continued her work. Every day she attended meetings. Every day she listened to the Volanti insult humanity. Every day she smiled politely and said nothing. But every night she worked alone in her small quarters. She had learned the Volanti language perfectly, including the clicking sounds they thought humans could not hear. She knew their ship designs from studying leaked engineering documents. She understood their battle tactics from analyzing old war records. The Volanti thought she was nothing. A decoration. A token representative of a primitive species. They spoke freely in front of her, never imagining she understood every word. One evening, she was walking through the station corridors when 2 Volanti officers passed her. They did not even look at her as they spoke. "The fleet is almost ready," one said. 47 ships for the first strike." "More than enough," the other replied. "The humans have perhaps 5 vessels in that sector. Old ones. We will crush them in a single day. High Commander Zorvax wants prisoners. He thinks the humans will make good slaves for the Mayan colonies." They both laughed and walked on, their scales bright with cruel amusement. Claire kept walking, her face calm, but her heart was beating fast. She reached her quarters and immediately began composing her most important message yet. Attack imminent. 47 ships. Target, Kepler sector. They expect minimal resistance. They plan to take prisoners for slave labor. She added every detail she had gathered over the past 18 months. Ship types, commander names, communication frequencies, supply line locations, weapon specifications, shield weaknesses. When she was done, the file was enormous. She encrypted it 7 times using codes the Volanti had never seen. Then she sent it through a hidden channel that bounced the signal off 12 different relay stations before reaching Earth. Admiral, Cole received the file at 3 in the morning. He read it twice, then called Lisa into his office. "Wake up Captain Daniel Price," he said. "Tell him the Horizon is going to war." Lisa's eyes widened. The Horizon was Earth's most advanced warship, but very few people knew it existed. It had been built in secret over the past decade, hidden in an asteroid field far from prying eyes. Just one ship against 47? She asked. Nathan handed her a data chip. "Give this to Daniel. He will understand." On the chip were 2 words, Shepard Protocol. The next morning, Claire Novak attended another council meeting. Zorvax was there, his scales shifting with barely hidden excitement. He knew the attack would begin in 2 days. He imagined the fear on human faces when his fleet appeared in their skies. At the end of the meeting, he approached Claire directly. He towered over her, his shadow blocking the light. "Tell me, human," he said, "do your people ever regret coming to the stars? So much danger out here. So many powerful species who might wish you harm." Claire looked up at him with her calm brown eyes. "We do not regret," she said. "We are exactly where we are supposed to be." Zorvax laughed, a harsh clicking sound. "Such confidence. I wonder if you will feel the same way soon." He walked away, still laughing. Claire watched him go. She thought about the message she had sent. She thought about the Horizon and its captain and the weapons that no alien species had ever seen. "Yes," she whispered to herself. "I think I will." The Volanti 7th Fleet jumped into the Kepler 442 system with perfect precision. 47 warships appeared from hyperspace in a tight formation, their weapons already charging. Commander Therax stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with eager eyes. "Scan the system," he ordered. "Find me the human settlements." His officers worked quickly. The scan showed 3 small colonies on nearby planets. Mining operations mostly. Perhaps 10,000 humans total. There were also 2 old cargo ships fleeing toward the outer planets. Easy prey. And their military? Therax asked. "One ship, Commander?" "Just one. It is holding position near the 3rd planet." Tharir. Therax clicked his teeth in amusement. "One ship. They sent 1 ship to defend against us." He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel. I want to speak to this brave fool." The screen flickered and a human face appeared. Captain Daniel Price was a man of about 40 years, with short brown hair and a calm expression. He sat in his command chair as if he were simply waiting for a friend to arrive for dinner. "The Volanti fleet, you have entered human space without permission," Daniel said. His voice was quiet but clear. "Turn back now. This is your only warning." Therax's scales turned bright yellow with laughter. "Your only warning? Little human, look at my fleet. 47 ships. Do you see them? Each one is bigger than your vessel. Each one carries enough weapons to turn your colonies into dust." "I see them," Daniel replied. "Then you understand your situation. Power down your weapons. Surrender your ship. Your crew will be taken prisoner and treated fairly. This I promise." Daniel seemed to consider this for a moment. He looked around his bridge at his crew. There were about 50 people there, men and women of different ages. None of them looked afraid. If anything, they looked excited. "I appreciate the offer," Daniel said, turning back to the screen. "But I am afraid I must decline." Therax blinked his large eyes in confusion. You decline? Human, this is not a negotiation. You have no choice. There is always a choice, Daniel said. You made yours when you came here. Now I will make mine. He nodded to his tactical officer, a young woman named Amy Lynn. Launched the Shepherd Protocol. Amy pressed a single button. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Volanthi sensors began screaming warnings. From the belly of the human ship, hundreds of small objects were pouring out into space. They spread in every direction, moving with impossible speed and coordination. What are those? Tharax demanded. Drones, Commander. More than 300 of them. Destroy them. All ships, open fire. The Volanthi fleet unleashed a storm of weapons fire. Plasma beams cut through space. Missiles shrieked toward the spreading cloud of drones. Explosions lit up the darkness, but the drones did not fly in straight lines. They twisted and turned, dodging attacks with movements that seemed almost alive. The Volanthi gunners were trained to fight other ships, predictable targets that followed the laws of physics. These small machines followed no such rules. The first Volanthi ship exploded 3 minutes into the battle. A swarm of drones had slipped past its point defense guns and attached themselves to the hull. They found the weak spots in the armor, the joints and seams that were never quite as strong as the rest. Then they detonated in perfect sequence. The ship broke apart like a toy crushed by an angry child. No, Tharax whispered. A second ship died. Then a third. The drones were everywhere now, slipping through the formation like water through fingers. They communicated with each other faster than any living creature could think, sharing information, coordinating attacks, learning from every failed approach. Daniel Price watched the battle from his bridge. His ship, the Horizon, had not fired a single shot from its main weapons. It did not need to. The Shepherd drones were doing all the work. Enemy fleet is breaking formation, Amy reported. They are trying to scatter. Let them run, Daniel said. But mark the ones who stay and fight. Those are the brave ones. Give them a clean death. Tharax tried to rally his fleet. He screamed orders into his communicator, demanding that his captains hold the line. But the line was already broken. Everywhere he looked, Volanthi ships were burning. The drones were relentless, patient, tireless. They did not feel fear. They did not make mistakes. By the 20-minute mark, 15 Volanthi ships were destroyed. By 30 minutes, that number had doubled. The survivors were fleeing in every direction, their hyperspace drives spinning up as fast as their engineers could manage. Tharax's flagship was hit as he tried to escape. 3 drones breached his engine room and detonated. The explosion crippled his ship, leaving it drifting in space. He watched through a cracked viewport as the human vessel approached slowly. A voice came through his communicator. It was Daniel Price. Commander, your ship is disabled but not destroyed. If you surrender now, we will take your crew prisoner and treat them fairly. This, I promise. The same words Tharax had used. The same calm tone. But now they meant something very different. Tharax wanted to refuse. He wanted to die fighting. But when he looked at his crew, wounded and frightened, he knew he could not ask them to die for his pride. We surrender, he said, the words bitter in his mouth. When the battle was over, 16 Volanthi ships had escaped. 31 had been destroyed. The Horizon had taken some damage, and 7 crew members were wounded. But everyone was alive. The news reached Earth within hours. Lisa Garrett read the report with a mixture of relief and sorrow. They had won, but she knew this was only the beginning. The survivors will report what happened, she told Admiral Cole. The Volanthi will send a bigger fleet next time. Nathan nodded slowly. Yes, they will. They will send everything they have. He looked at the star map on his wall, at the 17 systems controlled by the Volanthi Dominion. And we will be ready. On the council station, Claire Novak heard about the battle from the whispers of alien delegates. They looked at her differently now. The quiet human in the corner seat was no longer invisible. Zorvax was not at the meeting that day. She heard he was in his quarters, raging at his advisors, demanding to know how this had happened. Claire smiled her soft smile and made notes on her datapad. Phase 1 complete. Awaiting Phase 2. High Commander Zorvax stood before the great assembly of the Volanthi Dominion. His scales were dark red with fury. Around him sat the leaders of his species, the admirals and governors and nobles who controlled 17 star systems. "We have been humiliated," Zorvax declared. "A single human ship destroyed 31 of our vessels. A single ship. This cannot stand. This will not stand." An old admiral named Vexer raised his hand. His scales were gray with age, and his voice was thin. "High Commander, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The humans clearly have weapons we did not expect. A diplomatic solution might be wise." Zorvax turned on him with blazing eyes. "Diplomatic? You want us to bow to these creatures? These soft, weak beings who we could crush with our bare hands?" "The battle suggests otherwise," Vexer said carefully. "The battle was a mistake. We underestimated them. We sent a small fleet against unknown technology. That error will not be repeated." Zorvax raised his clawed fist high. "I will lead our entire military. 400 warships. Every vessel we have. We will strike at their colonies, their stations, their homeworld, if we must. When we are finished, no human will dare to raise a weapon against us ever again." The assembly hall erupted in cheers. Only Vexer and 2 other old admirals remained silent. They remembered the wars of their youth. They knew that rage was a poor foundation for strategy. Zorvax executed them that evening for cowardice. The fleet launched 3 days later with great ceremony. Volanthi citizens gathered in public squares to watch the broadcasts. Children waved flags as the massive warships climbed toward the stars. Priests blessed the fleet with prayers for victory. Soldiers shouted oaths of loyalty. 400 ships. The largest armada the Volanthi had ever assembled. It was a force that had conquered dozens of species over the centuries. No one in the galaxy could stand against such power. On Earth, Admiral Nathan Cole watched the fleet movements from his command center. His face showed nothing, but inside he felt a cold calm settling over him. This was the moment he had prepared for his entire career. "They are coming," he said to Lisa. "All of them." Lisa looked at the tactical display. 400 red dots moving through hyperspace toward human territory. "What do we do?" "We spring the trap." Nathan touched a control on his console. "Connect me to Captain Rachel Burke on the Franklin." Rachel Burke was a woman of 50 years with steel gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been a fighter pilot in her youth, then a destroyer captain, then a battleship commander. Now she led the most powerful vessel humanity had ever built. "Admiral," she said when her face appeared on screen. "I was wondering when you would call. The Volanthi are coming with everything they have. 400 ships." Rachel nodded. "And how many do we send?" 12. She smiled. It was the smile of a hunter who sees her prey walking into a snare. "The Harbinger class? All of them?" "All of them. And the Franklin will carry something special." Nathan transmitted a technical file. "Chief Engineer Maria Santos has finished the gravity well generator. You will trap them in normal space. They will not be able to run." Rachel studied the file quickly. "This technology has never been tested in combat." "Then you will be the first. Do you have concerns?" "Only one." Rachel leaned closer to the screen. "When we destroy their fleet, when their entire military lies in ruins, what then? Do we invade? Do we conquer them as they plan to conquer us?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment. "We will decide that when the time comes. For now, focus on winning the battle." The 2 fleets met in a region of empty space between star systems. It was a place with no planets, no stations, Nothing but darkness and distant stars. The Volanthi had chosen it because they wanted no witnesses. They planned to crush the humans and then claim the victory however they wished. Zorvax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's pride. He looked at the tactical display and felt a surge of satisfaction. 12 human ships against his 400. Even with their strange weapons, the outcome was certain. "Hail them," he ordered. "I want to see their fear." Rachel Burke appeared on his screen. She did not look afraid. She looked patient. "The Lanfi fleet," she said. "You are entering restricted space. Turn back now or face the consequences." Zorvax laughed. "Consequences? Little human, look at my fleet. 400 ships. The greatest force ever assembled. What consequences could you possibly offer?" "You should have listened to your advisors," Rachel replied. Then she cut the transmission and gave the order. Deep in the engineering section of the Franklin, Maria Santos activated the gravity well generator. She had spent 5 years building this device, testing it, refining it. She knew every circuit, every power coupling, every potential failure point. She had checked everything 100 times. The machine hummed to life. Space itself seemed to twist around the Volanthi fleet. Their ships lurched and shook as the laws of physics changed around them. Hyperspace drives that had never failed suddenly went dead. Engines that could push a warship between stars were now trapped like insects in amber. What is happening? Zorvax demanded. His officers had no answer. The 12 human ships moved forward. They were smaller than the Volanthi warships, but they moved with perfect coordination. Their weapons were unlike anything the Volanthi had seen before. Cascade beams cut through shields as if they were not there. Missiles tracked their targets with impossible precision. Drones swarmed from launch bays, more than the Volanthi sensors could count. The slaughter began. Volanthi ships died by the dozen. Their weapons' fire seemed to bend away from the human vessels, deflected by fields of energy that science could not explain. They tried to scatter, but there was nowhere to go. They tried to surrender, but the battle was moving too fast for communications to keep up. Zorvax watched his empire burn. Ship after ship exploded on his tactical display. The names of captains he had known for decades vanished in fire. The fleet that was supposed to conquer humanity was being erased from existence. 3 hours later, it was over. More than 300 Volanthi ships were debris. 62 had survived by luck or skill. Zorvax's flagship was one of them, but it was crippled and drifting. He stood alone on his darkened bridge, surrounded by the bodies of his crew. The screens showed human ships approaching. He could see their weapons charging for the final shot. "So this is how it ends," he whispered. The last thing he saw was a flash of light brighter than a star. The survivors of the Volanthi fleet limped home with terrible news. Less than 60 ships returned from an armada of 400. High Commander Zorvax was dead. The greatest military force in Volanthi history had been destroyed in a single afternoon. Panic spread through the Dominion. Citizens who had cheered the fleet's departure now hid in their homes. Governors who had promised glory now scrambled to explain defeat. The government that had ruled for 1,000 years began to crack. On the council station, Claire Novak watched it all unfold. The other species finally understood what had happened. The quiet humans they had ignored for so long had just killed the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Delegates, who had never spoken to Claire, now approached her with nervous respect. They asked questions she would not answer. They offered friendship they had never shown before. She listened to them all and said nothing. The Thren ambassador was different. His species looked like large insects, with hard shells and many limbs. They had been conquered by the Volanthi 200 years ago and forced to work in the mines. Millions of his people had died in slavery. Is it true? He asked Claire in a quiet voice. The Volanthi military is destroyed? Most of it, Claire replied. Then they cannot hold our worlds anymore. His antennae trembled with emotion. We could be free. Yes, Claire said. You could be. On Earth, Admiral Cole was already planning the next phase. The Volanthi Dominion was in chaos, but chaos could be dangerous. A wounded enemy might do desperate things. He needed to move quickly and carefully. We have 3 objectives, he told Lisa. First, secure human space. No Volanthi ship comes near our colonies again. Second, liberate the species they have enslaved. Third, prevent them from rebuilding their fleet. Lisa studied the star map. The Volanthi Dominion covered 17 systems. Some were heavily defended. Others were barely controlled. How do we proceed? We offer a choice. The enslaved species can join us or remain neutral. We will protect them either way. The Volanthi can surrender or fight. If they surrender, we will be merciful. If they fight, he did not need to finish the sentence. The next weeks moved quickly. 30 human warships spread across Volanthi space, each one carrying weapons that could destroy a fleet. But they did not come as conquerors. They came as liberators. Lisa Garrett led the mission to the Thren system. Her ship, the USS Columbia, arrived to find 3 Volanthi patrol vessels guarding the planet. When they saw her approach, they immediately powered up their weapons. Volanthi vessels, stand down, Lisa broadcast. We are not here to fight you. We are here to free the Thren people. Leave now, and you will not be harmed. The patrol commander was young and scared. His scales flickered between colors as he tried to decide what to do. He had seen the reports from the Great Battle. He knew what these human ships could do. And if we refuse? He asked, his voice shaking. Then your families will never see you again. Lisa kept her tone calm. But that is your choice, not mine. The patrol ships fled into hyperspace without another word. Lisa landed on the Thren homeworld with a small team. The insectoid aliens gathered around them in great crowds, their antennae waving with joy and disbelief. For 200 years, they had dreamed of freedom. Now, it had arrived in the form of quiet humans with gentle voices. The Thren Queen emerged from her underground shelter. She was very old, her shell cracked with age, but she moved with dignity. She approached Lisa and bowed her head. We never forgot the old stories, the Queen said through a translator. The story said that one day, quiet ones would come from the stars and break our chains. We thought they were only myths. Lisa felt tears in her eyes. We are not myths. We are simply late. Better late than never. The Queen reached out and touched Lisa's hand with a gentle claw. Thank you. From all my people, thank you. Similar scenes played out across the Dominion. Species that had been enslaved for generations watched their Volanthi masters flee in terror. Human ships protected them, brought them supplies, helped them rebuild. No demands were made. No tribute was asked in the core systems. The remaining Volanthi forces tried to regroup. A new council had taken power, made up of civilians who had opposed the war from the beginning. They knew they could not fight anymore. They had perhaps 70 ships left, against a human fleet that grew stronger every day. But some Volanthi refused to surrender. A group of admirals who had escaped the Great Battle gathered their ships near a fuel depot. They planned a final desperate attack on human supply lines. If they could not win, they would make the humans bleed. Maria Santos discovered their plan. She had been working non-stop since the battle, refining the gravity well generators. Each new version was smaller and more powerful. Now human cruisers could trap enemy ships, not just the large carriers. We intercepted their communications, she reported to Admiral Cole. 23 ships planning to hit our convoy near the Nexus station. When? 12 hours. Nathan considered for a moment. Send Captain Rachel Burke. Let her finish what she started. The ambush became a trap. Rachel's task force was waiting when the Volanthi attackers arrived. The gravity well snapped shut around them before they could react. This time, there was no long battle. It was over in minutes. Not a single Volanthi ship escaped. When the news reached the new Volanti Council, they finally accepted what they had tried to deny. The war was over. They had lost completely. Their only hope now was that the humans would show them the mercy they had never shown others. A message was sent to Earth. Simple words, carefully chosen. We request terms for surrender. We ask for peace. Admiral Cole read the message in his office. Lisa was beside him. They had worked together for 15 years, through training exercises and small conflicts, and now the greatest war humanity had ever fought. What do you want to do? Lisa asked. Nathan looked at the star map one more time. 17 systems. Billions of people of different species. The Volanti, who had started this war with arrogance and cruelty. The slaves who had been freed by human weapons. I want to do what is right, he said. Whatever that means. He began composing his reply. The final human fleet arrived at Valanther Prime on a cold morning by local time. 42 warships hung in orbit around the planet, their weapons silent but ready. Below them, the Volanti homeworld turned slowly, its cities dark with fear. 73 Volanti ships formed a defensive sphere around their world. It was everything they had left. Every vessel that could still fly, every crew that could still fight. They waited in silence, watching the human fleet, knowing that their survival depended on what happened next. Admiral Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the USS Resolute. Through the main viewport, he could see the Volanti planet, blue and green like Earth, home to billions of people. He thought about what Zorvax had planned to do to human colonies. He thought about the slaves the Volanti had taken. He thought about the wars they had started and the species they had crushed. He also thought about the civilians below, the children who had never asked for this war, the families who had simply lived their lives while their leaders made terrible choices. Admiral, a voice came through his communicator. It was Claire Novak. She had been evacuated from the council station weeks ago and now served on his staff. The new Volanti Council is requesting communication. They want to discuss terms. Nathan nodded. Put them through. The screen flickered and the Volanti face appeared. But this was not the arrogant, cruel expression Nathan had seen in so many intelligence reports. This Volanti looked tired, defeated. Her scales were dull gray, the color of grief. I am Commander Ixara, she said. I speak for the Volanti people. We ask for peace. Nathan studied her for a moment. Your predecessor dismissed our diplomat. He believed humans were beneath notice. He called us weak because we spoke softly. Yes, Ixara bowed her head. He was wrong. He was wrong about everything. His mistakes have cost us our fleet, our empire, and our honor. Many of my people died in this war, Nathan continued. Many more would have died if Zorvax had won. He planned to take them as slaves. I know. Ixara's voice was very quiet. I cannot defend what was done. I can only ask if there is any path forward. There is always a path forward. The question is whether you are willing to walk it. Ixara looked up, her eyes meeting his through the screen. What do you require? Nathan had prepared this list carefully. He had consulted with diplomats and military advisors and leaders from a dozen freed species. Each demand was fair but firm. First, complete demilitarization. Your remaining warships will be dismantled. You may keep a small defense force for protecting trade routes, but no offensive capability. Ixara nodded slowly. Agreed. Second, reparations to the species you enslaved. Credits, resources, technology. Whatever they need to rebuild their worlds. Agreed. Third, oversight. Human observers will remain in your systems for 20 years. They will ensure you follow these terms and that your people are treated fairly. Ixara hesitated. This was hard to accept. Foreign observers on Volanti worlds, watching their every move. It was humiliation, but what choice did she have? Agreed, she said finally. Nathan leaned forward. There is one more thing. Ixara waited, her scales shifting with anxiety. The war ends today, but the past is not forgotten. Your people committed great crimes under Zorvax and the leaders before him. There must be accountability. A trial? Ixara asked. Of our former leaders? Yes, open and fair. The galaxy will watch. Justice must be seen to be done. Ixara closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, there was something new there. Not fear or anger. Something like relief. It will be done, she said. We accept all your terms. Nathan nodded. Then the war is over. The communication ended. On the bridge of the Resolute, the crew erupted in cheers. Lisa Garrett stood beside Nathan, tears running down her face. They had won. Against an enemy that had planned to enslave them, they had won. But Nathan did not cheer. He looked at the Volanti planet below and thought about all the lives that had been lost. All the ships that had burned. All the families that would never see their loved ones again. Was it worth it? Lisa asked quietly, seeing his expression. I do not know, Nathan admitted. But it is done. 2 days later, Claire Novak returned to the council station. The chamber that had once ignored her now rose in respect when she entered. The Thren ambassador, the representatives of a dozen freed species, even the Volanti observer who had replaced Zorvax's delegates. They all stood for the quiet human dot. She took her place at the table and waited for silence. A new era begins today, she said, her voice soft but clear. The Volanti Dominion is no more. In its place, we will build something better. A community of species working together. Trade and cooperation instead of conquest and slavery. She paused, looking around the chamber. Some of you were our enemies. Some of you were neutral. Some of you suffered in chains. All of you now have a choice. You can join us in building this new future, or you can stand apart. We will not force anyone. That is not our way. The Thren ambassador rose. The Thren people stand with humanity. You gave us our freedom. We will never forget. One by one, other representatives spoke. Species that had been enslaved pledged their friendship. Species that had been neutral offered their support. Even the Volanti observer bowed his head in acknowledgement. When the meeting ended, Claire walked to the observation deck. Through the great windows, she could see the stars spreading out forever. So many worlds. So many possibilities. The Thren ambassador joined her there. You were watching us all along, he said. Gathering information. Preparing for war. Yes, Claire admitted. Why did you never tell us? We could have helped, because we needed you to be free first. Claire smiled her quiet smile. And because some things cannot be done with words alone. Sometimes you have to show people what you mean. And what did you mean? Claire looked at the stars one more time. She thought about Zorvax and his arrogance. About the Volanti who had laughed at her silence. About the fleets that had burned and the chains that had broken. We meant that quiet is not the same as weak, she said. We meant that patience is not the same as fear. We meant that when we speak, we expect to be heard. The Thren ambassador nodded slowly. And now everyone hears you. Yes. Claire turned away from the window. Now everyone hears. She walked back toward the council chamber, ready for the work that lay ahead. There were treaties to write and alliances to build and wounds to heal. The galaxy would never be the same. But that, she thought,